Just move forward, Simon. Well, maybe I don't want to move forward. Maybe I just want to sit right here. Ugh, this guy.
Hey, it's Allie. Welcome back to my channel. And thank you for enabling me. I remember the first episode of Adventure Time where we find out that there's more to the Ice King. I'm pretty sure it was Remember You. Raise your hand, who cried? And let me tell you, the decision to go there with his character is one of the absolute most harrowing things I have ever seen in a cartoon. And it's depressing. And now with Fionna and Cake, well, it's still depressing, but like this is a different flavor of depressing. If at any time you like this video, please give it a like and subscribe because I make videos like this all the time. And comment down below how you guys feel about Simon. Was he your baby girl as much as he was my baby girl? Let me know down below and let's jump into it. So one of the heavy themes in this show is control. Both in Fionna and Simon's life, they are grappling with the fact that they feel like they have no control over their lives. And Simon's version of coping with this and coping with the fact that he hasn't had control over his life for the past like probably 100 or so years, and now he has control over his life and he's not quote unquote special anymore, and he feels like he has nothing to do with his life. So his way of giving back control to himself is to literally make a spectacle out of himself. The entire idea of the 20th century man exhibit that Simon has for himself is played off for jokes in the beginning, but once you get deeper and deeper into his character, you're really sitting there like, wait a minute, like, is anybody forcing you to do this? Like, you start to think like, is this your job? Is this like the way you make money? Like, surely after everything that you've done to like help society, I'm sure Princess Bubblegum, Marceline, somebody can put you up at a house somewhere. Like, why do you feel the need that you have to do this? And then I realized no one is forcing him to do this. No one is forcing him to sit in this exhibit and be this person and be gawked at and be this spectacle. No one is forcing him to do that. He is inflicting this punishment almost onto himself. Like, he feels like this is the only good thing he can give to the world, despite the fact that he's an entire like historic professor. He feels like this is the only thing he can give to the world, the only way to make himself useful in this scenario. So he puts himself on display like this, clearly not loving it. Like, I'm sure people asked him questions about like the 20th century and wanted to know about history and stuff before the war, before ooh became ooh, and before when there were like other humans. Like, I understand that people probably asked you a lot of questions, and you may even want to put on a couple of talks here and there, or maybe make a whole video spiel about it. Like, I get that, but this kind of like self-inflicted like punishment that he is doing to himself because he feels like he has no control over his life. Like, this is the ultimate form of having no control over your life. You're literally in a exhibit where people can see you. There's no privacy. That was the most jarring thing, to find out that there is absolutely no privacy unless you close the shutters. Oh, I could not handle that. I really could not handle that. Like, that part really stuck out to me because I'm just like, there's no privacy for him, but this is all self-inflicted. And we find this out at the end of the show that it's self-inflicted, because the entire show I was sitting here thinking that like, oh, maybe he's, you know, forced to do this, or he can't have any money or whatever. But then like everybody like loves him and likes him, and I'm like, there's no way Princess Bubblegum or like anybody else for that matter would just let him be homeless. So I don't know why he's doing this. And then at the end of the show, when he's talking to Finn's mom, who is his therapist, he like is like, oh, I think I'm gonna move. So no one forced you to do this. You just did this on your own. Simon. And this definitely goes into him clinging on to the past and not being able to let go of the past. You know how they always say like you need to separate your life from your work, you know, always if you have to work from home, it might be better to get like a home office if you can afford it, or just not work in your room or on your bed or anything like that. I never follow those. My bed is so comfortable. I have this whole nice desk set up here, but my bed is just so comfortable. But anyway, but yeah, you know how they say that. With Simon, however, I think it's because he's clinging on to the past so much that he is like, I need to input myself in this because it reminds him of better times before the world literally ended, before he went insane, all of that. So I think he's clinging on to like what he has left, which are these relics of the past. And he's technically the only person who knows about that past. Like, you could argue Marceline, but even that, a lot of her childhood was filled up with the apocalypse, so you can't really argue that either. Like, he is really the only one who remembers any of that time before the war and when things were, I guess, more like our world or Fiona's world, for example. And this of course leads into his obsession in trying to find and then fix Betty, which of course mimics how Betty was trying to find and then fix Simon when he was trapped in the Ice King's powers. I think he feels this immense amount of guilt, which is why he is inflicting this self-punishment on you. Usually when someone is doing something to this degree that is so self-inflicting, it is usually because they feel guilty about something. And I think that Simon definitely feels guilty about what happened to Betty, and that he, you know, finally gets in his right mind and he isn't even able to spend any of that time with Betty, because now Betty is not in her right mind anymore when she was Magic Man for a hot second, and then when she turned into gold. And then of course you could argue that there wasn't even that much of her left to begin with, which is why she felt so obsessive to find Simon and fix Simon in the first place, because all she had was Simon. Oh my god, their relationship. Their relationship was so toxic, like so unbelievably toxic, like, and it hurts, I think, more because they actually loved each other. And that's what really makes it hurt. It hurts. Like when Simon sits there and says that, like, his character growth in this is amazing. And he sits there and he says that, like, I should have known better.
I stood by and allowed you to sacrifice yourself for me, even though part of me should have known better.
When he realizes that, like, Betty only did literally everything for him. And it's like, yeah, you should have known better. There is that slight power dynamic between Betty and Simon when they first meet each other. She is, like, looks up to him a lot, and he's, like, semi-famous, like, famous for being a hack and a quack and this, that, the third. And Betty, of course, looks up to him a lot. And so while it's not, like, a crazy toxic power dynamic by any means whatsoever, Simon's obliviousness to this power dynamic and also his unwillingness to see Betty being this obsessed with him or anything like that leads to, you know, Betty just dropping everything for him. My favorite line in the show is when Simon finishes telling his story to Fionna, and Fionna goes, "Oh, so you went with her to Australia, right?" No, like, why would I do that? Like,
damn, that's romantic.
Yeah.
So you got on the bus with her?
Yep. Well, no. Why would I?
Bro, I want to tell you that I literally was staring at the screen. Like, I was like, oh, that's it. Like, that's when it all clicked for me. The, like, because like Betty and Simon's relationship was never at my forefront, especially towards the end. Like, it was very sad and very tragic, but never, like, in terms of their character development was I really thinking about that until this series. And oh boy, that was like the turning point where I was like, oh, like, that's where Simon's character is going at the end of this. And of course, when he gets to talk to Betty and he's literally standing on the edge, literally, like, standing, like, when he said, I felt like my life didn't matter, and just stands on the edge into the expanse of nothingness. What? So going back to Simon as an actual character, though, his whole thing with the Ice King, now that he is free from its grasp, and the song A Part of the Madness really captures how he feels now that he is sane. Like, he truly does not believe that he is worth anything now that he is no longer the Ice King. And despite the fact that he was not in his right mind when he was the Ice King, he had no say over anything. It was just someone else's long ago personality superimposed onto himself. He still thinks that, like, maybe being the Ice King was better because, yeah, I wasn't in my right mind, but I was powerful, I fit into this world, I was useful towards people, and, like, everybody else, like, eventually came around to the Ice King, especially once they learned about his past through Marceline. Everybody was like, oh, okay, like, we're giving him not a pass, because obviously kidnapping princesses don't do that, but there's a little bit more lenient on him. And, like, when it comes to inviting him to things and hanging out with him, they're a little bit more, like, lenient towards that, which was very touching to see that growth over the course of the series. But yeah, his sacrifice, and I put that in quotes, his sacrifice to want to be the Ice King again is essentially him committing, you know, like, sewer slide and being like, well, my life doesn't matter anyway, and so yeah, I am giving my life the same way Betty gave her life for me. Now I'm giving my life to these people. And it seems so sacrificial, but I feel like that's kind of the point of Betty's character. And while, yes, it seems like there was no other way in that moment for Betty to win or for the world to be saved from Gold, right? It really makes you wonder if, like, maybe there was another way. She maybe could have made a different type of wish or some type of thing or something like that. Because when Simon, you know, is about to put on the crown and literally Betty's wish stops him, and he goes through this whole thing of like learning about him and Betty's relationship and realizes that he is worthy of life, and Betty literally gave her life so that you can have your own now, and you are essentially wasting that, I guess, quote unquote, by, you know, throwing your life away for somebody else when there is another way, or you can think of another way. And that just happens to be wishing Fiona's world is canon and now like truly in existence. Like, why? Like, that was not like a plan. Like, the plan was just gotta get the crown back on. And especially as Fionna learns that like that is what's going to happen to Simon if he puts back on the crown, she is like completely distraught. She's like, absolutely not, I don't want you to do this for me. You know, she figures out obviously towards the end that like this is the world that she lives in is the world she wants to fight for. But Simon is just like no, let me do this for you, like it is literally my only way to be useful. And it's like, bro, also him not remembering the past correctly with him and Betty's relationship, him not realizing all of the sacrifices that Betty made for him, and obviously him now realizing that like that was not fair, like at all, to her. And of course there's nothing you can do about it now. And that's what I always love about Adventure Time, is like their endings are always like bittersweet. Like the ending, like Come Along With Me, was extremely bittersweet when you thought about Betty. Everybody else got a happy ending, but like Betty did not, and Betty really did not. And so this ending with him and Simon is like, how do you move on, right? Like, how do you move on from all of this, from losing a loved one, from going through grief and the guilt of that? And obviously it's not a linear process by any means, but this obsession that Simon has is not healthy, and it's not helping him or anybody for that matter. And obviously at the end we can see him having his little grand adventures by himself and finding his own little spark in the world again. You know, it's gonna take time, but like not putting yourself in situations like living in an actual museum where people can just look at you all day probably isn't going to do great for your self-esteem. This idea that you can live for yourself and that you can find love again and that there is love around you. Also the like reincarnation of Betty as a butterfly, which mimics like Finn's first life as a butterfly. Like, oh, I love cycles in this show, and I think cycles of sacrifice was a major one in this show that like got cut off, luckily, with both Fionna and Simon in this case. Simon decided like, I'm going to take this life that I've been given the second chance at life, and I'm going to use it and use this gift that I've been given. We can't go back. You can acknowledge all of the things that you've done wrong, and hopefully that helps you grow as a person, which it helped Simon grow, but you can't change it. You can't change the past. And I was literally like crying during that scene. I was on the phone with my friend, but like, oh my god, when Betty was like, I do like to think that that was Betty in Simon's mind, like actually talking to him, like, no, we made our decisions, and yeah, we could have made better ones, but like this is the outcome that we have. And like that experience was still an experience, and I still love it, and I still love you. I was just like and I'd like to think Betty at the end got reincarnated. I like to think she got reincarnated in the end. And I feel like that's also why I'm okay with no sequel, just because I feel like that storyline wrapped itself up pretty well. But if there's one thing about Adventure Time that I know, there was always a new story to tell. So it may not be Fionna and Cake, which could be really cool. Like, I can see if they want to do Fionna and Cake, because I mentioned this in the comments of my last video. Thank you guys so much for watching that video, by the way. You guys were talking about in the comments how you would love to see more of like everybody's lives, especially the newer characters that we got introduced to. And I'm on the same page. I would love to see especially more Prismo and Scarab and that entire thing. I know like half of the magic is that it's super secretive and mysterious and we don't know who the big boss is or anything like that. But one of my favorite like episodes is finding out the people who made BMO, and I thought that was such a great episode. And then the, you know, special with Finn and Jake going to the afterworld. Oh my god, I love that so much. I love the concept so much, and just learning about all the dead worlds and stuff. I love the lore of Adventure Time so much, so I would love to see that with Prismo and Scarab specifically. It was like Scarab was such a good character. Oh my god. But like, yeah, I don't know if it'll be Fionna and Cake season 2, but I would love to see like more lore in the realm, and there's always a story to tell with Adventure Time. So, and that's one of the amazing things about Adventure Time and why I love Adventure Time so much, is that there's always a story to be told there about something, someone, somewhere in the world. I also would like to know more about Finn. I know this takes place, I guess this has to take place obviously before Finn dies, So like the Adventure Time timeline is so crazy too, because that episode came out first, obviously, but it takes place so much farther later, past all the Fionna and Cake stuff, all that type of stuff. It takes place literally. Finn is like dying, like literally dead. He's probably like maybe 100 or something. He's like dead, and then he gets reincarnated. And I guess you could say they get reincarnated into, I guess, Schwarmy, and then like time is so crazy in this world, because then also Betty didn't just put Simon's like consciousness into Schwarmy, like she also sent him through time. Like, I love time shenanigans. I love time shenanigans. Anyway, that's all I have to say about Simon. I love him. He was my little pathetic baby girl. I love him so much. Also, him, I'll put this somewhere in the video, but him going to the Ice King world where the Ice King mastered the crown, and he feels even more guilt there. He feels even more guilt that like that Simon was able to master the crown and he wasn't. That there was some way for him to do that. And of course that comes with the sacrifice, seeing these cycles of sacrifice, that comes with the sacrifice of the Candy Princess. Candy Queen. So yeah, thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. If you did, you are a real one. I love Simon so much in this show. Oh my god, I roasted him the entire time, but it was out of love. It was out of, I really want you to get your life together, my man. It was out of pure love. And Tom Kenny, oh, voice actor of a generation. Anyway, thank you so much. You can find me on all of my social medias. They'll be down below. And yeah, come talk to me about literally anything. And hopefully I'll be doing some type of Halloween thing this next week. Maybe. I know I am doing FNAF, definitely. I got my tickets. We're seeing FNAF on the 27th. And then hopefully I'll get a video done so it will go up on the first Friday of November. But like the last Friday of October, I don't know. So one of you guys mentioned stop motion movies, and I used to be scared of stop motion as a kid. So like the only one I watched has been like A Nightmare Before Christmas. Like that one's not even that scary, but like the other ones that are like genuinely, oh, anyway, hopefully maybe I'll get to that, hopefully. But thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next episode. Love and peace.